Namaskar. Hello, friends. Remember that life is for sampling. Doesn't everyone know that life on this planet is transitory? Yes, surely every adult knows it. Yet, why is it that most people cannot have the viveka or discriminatory intellect to understand and accept the impermanence of everything physical in this world? Revered Sant Shri Dnyaneshwar gives an excellent metaphor. A frog that is being swallowed by a snake keeps catching insects till the last moment of its life. Aren't we humans endowed with much better intellect than this frog in the metaphor? Why is it that we also keep hankering after physical and egoistic pleasures till our last breath? We know that we can't carry any pleasures with us when we die. In fact, we know that a pleasure is very short lived. We also know that pain is usually transitory. Besides, we know that pain is a natural response of the body to something unnatural that happens to it. Then why is there so much primacy to pain and pleasure in our lives? Why does pain disturb us and why does pleasure excite us? I can understand if our attitude is to sample pleasures that easily come our way, either without effort on our part or with honest and reasonable effort that allows us to live in a balanced manner. But why a voracious appetite for pleasures? Why an aversion to pain? And why don't we realize this truth even after sampling life for a fair length of time? Contemplation is the most important part of spiritual practice. We as souls come into this world as embodied soul, that is Jivatma, to experience the duality. Until the embodied soul is satiated with the worldly experiences, he is not liberated. In fact, in fact, the liberation is his choice, but he does not make that choice until he is fully satiated. When the satiation crosses a threshold level, detached attitude, that is Vairagya Bhav, starts establishing gradually. Then one starts contemplating on the nature of the world and one's life in it, especially the impermanence and the transitory nature of them. When Vairagya Bhav establishes firmly and fully, the soul gets liberated. As a soul starts developing Vairagya Bhav, his interest in the world based on duality starts diminishing. It means judging and labeling of things and events as good or bad goes on reducing. He starts accepting more and more things as they are, regarding them as belonging to the big picture of the Creator. His actions are initiated and carried in God consciousness instead of with worldly and conditioned selfish interest. It then naturally follows that he cannot be bothered by dilemmas like whether his action is good or bad. For him, he is only an instrument through which the Almighty is getting certain tasks performed for his own divine purpose. It is like a knife not feeling bad when it is used for killing someone. So, as can be seen from the foregoing, this progress towards liberation is essentially gradual. It can't happen overnight. But the seeker has to have a burning and intense desire to attain liberation. Remain constantly aware of the ideal, the objective to be attained, and keep doing his best consciously. He has to live less and less like a robot driven by the external world and more driven by his own inner voice that is divine. That is the only way one will eventually achieve perfection. Meanwhile, it is an imperfect walk along the path, but surely a gradual progress towards the final objective. During this, one will have to go through the dilemmas and keep taking decisions in the awareness that everything is ultimately for the Almighty and nothing is for me. So the key is to give up mechanical living and instead pursue a contemplative living guided by the aim of liberation. It is necessary to have patience, perseverance, and persistence with sadhana, that is, spiritual practice, without being too concerned whether one is really making progress and without comparing oneself with someone else, keeping faith in the Almighty's scheme and in the Guru. Contemplation is thinking about thinking. In one large organization that I used to work for, the top boss was in the habit of asking officers if they had time to think. It was a revelation that the boss valued thinking so much. Usually, staff used to be overly busy with paper pushing, and knowing that, the boss used to try and drive home the importance of thinking. This has some relevance in the spiritual context. We are used to living in a very mechanical way. We are all the time busy with thinking about and doing something in the physical world and have no time to think about the spiritual aspects of human life. We need to find time to contemplate on spiritual matters. We should be aware of that need because as human beings, we are supposed to evolve as spiritual beings. But since the physical world is so attractive, we tend to get completely lost in its pursuit. Hence, we should make it a point to devote some time to contemplation on spiritual matters. In my view, spiritual contemplation is thinking about thinking, kind of meta thinking. We should think how our mind thinks about the worldly matters. Then, gradually, we will start seeing mind for what it really is and how it works. That is the first step towards developing spiritual outlook. The best way to go about it is to sit down in a quiet place at a fixed time every day for an hour of meditation. We don't have to keep any difficult objective of meditation like concentrating on focusing the mind on a single thought, etc. Simply let the mind go on with its game and you just be aware of how a thought comes and goes away, only to be replaced by another one. Slowly, a conscious awareness of the futility of many thoughts, worries, desires, etc. will start developing. That is how one will evolve spiritually. Practice of spirituality is keeping the right attitude towards life. Consider a hypothetical situation. Your child goes to school every morning by a school bus. Another child of a neighbor of yours also goes by the same school bus. One morning you hear that a school bus met with an accident in the neighborhood. You do not know which school bus it was. So you immediately start worrying and rush to the accident spot. You see that the bus is indeed the one which your child takes. So your worry continues and in fact increases. Then you start looking for your child in the melee and finally find her to be safe. Now you are relieved greatly. However, you still feel a little worry much less than the earlier one, until you find out about the neighbor's child. When you find her to be safe too, your worry almost completely disappears. Even if some other children have been injured, that fact does not bother you as much now, though you may feel some sympathy for them. On the other hand, if you find that the bus is for a different school altogether, you may not feel any significant concern at all, except out of a basic human sensitivity. Why does the degree of worrying or concern change as above? It is because you have a sense of identification which is the strongest with your own child, considerably less with the neighbor's child, and pretty low for the other children from the same school, and almost nil with the children from another school. A spiritual seeker needs to be aware of this phenomenon of identification on the broader scale of the whole life itself. We variously identify with people, objects, and events, and our attitudes vary depending on the kind of identification in each case, like in the case of the bus accident described before. As a spiritual seeker, we need to reduce our identification with the worldly objects and phenomena so that we can view them passively and remain unaffected by them. To see the source of river, you have to travel upstream. Imagine you are flowing downstream in a river, enjoying the scenery around you, and always feeling excited or anxious about how the scenery will change somewhere further down, for better or for worse, and when. Now imagine someone wanting to see the source of the river. He can't achieve that aim by continuing to flow downstream. He has to travel upstream. But traveling upstream in the river is very difficult, almost impossible. So one has to get out of the river and walk along the bank towards the source. Some people may get a ride in a fast car along the bank and will reach the source earlier than those walking. Some others may be able to get into a boat that can travel upstream. The luckiest ones may even be able to fly in a helicopter or an aeroplane directly to the source of the river in a straight line and will manage to reach the source the fastest. Most of us human beings are flowing down the river of samsara, that is worldly life, and enjoying it thoroughly. We are also all the time excited to imagine what will be the experience further down the river. Some of us, however, at some stage lose interest in going on and on like that. They start developing a feeling that it is more and more of the same thing. So a desire is kindled in them to find out where the source of this magnificent river of samsara is. That desire is called mumukshutva, that is desire to attain moksha, get liberated. A spiritual desire, akin to reaching the source of the river. Some of these people get out of the river altogether and walk along the bank all on their own, with their soul as their guide. Some receive the grace of a Sadguru and get either a car or a boat or an aeroplane, depending on their luck, or I may say depending on their adhikar or eligibility, and they will safely and quickly reach the source. But as can be seen, the most critical requirement is losing interest in flowing downstream. That is the onset of vairagya bhav or detachment. In the absence of it, one will simply love flowing downstream and continue with it. I will stop here today. I'll see you the next time. Until then, bye. Take care.